So everybody knows about figured bass. So you have like a bass line, and
Yeah.
you put numbers over it, and you see at least the dots in the line. So you have to combine these dots to linear, a top melody and a middle voice. Um, Most of you have also heard the word unfigured bass. So when
Yeah.
the figures are missing, you have to imagine yourself where are the modulations, and often the rule of the octave is used to solve these puzzles. When you have a short, like the Furno pieces, they are entirely unfigured, and you have to use the rule of the octave to solve it. Well, underfigured bass is a term that I think is good to use in the case of Cotumacci, because what Cotumacci does is that he deliberately omits certain information from the figures. So they are not unfigured, but they are not figured either. For example, in most of the 50 lessons in Volume 1, he restrains from using any accidentals in the figures, which is very strange, even though, I mean, it's obvious for everyone that accidentals are played, because otherwise it would sound very strange. So they are played, but they are not notated. Yeah. So in the beginning, when I was reading these pieces, I was thinking, do we have to do with a bad copyist here? You start to doubt on the quality of the collection. Can this really be correct? But now when I found this autograph, I was that was a great moment, because I could see, this is deliberately done. These are no mistakes. This is really part of his pedagogy.
Could,
And so
could we see an example of that? What do you mean by underfigured? Maybe we should see something that represents that.
I have a few slides. We'll come to that. I will have a few slides to show in the beginning, just to show the different styles of partimentos. I just took a few photos from various manuscripts, just to show what you see. Yeah, so if we take the next slide, we see a typical start of the school of Durante. What you see here is typical, because Durante starts with cadences. So you have bom, 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 a simple cadential formula, and it is then repeated in new keys. In this case, it's interesting to see that he extends the cadence. So there's a pom pom pom, and then pom 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 pom, and then pom 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 pom, and then pom 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 pom, like that. And so they become slightly more extended. So a little bit more to memorize, and a little bit more to also to connect with the previous exercise. So this is and the length of these is always the same. So you can use the skills you learned in the G major version and apply it into the next key. Yeah, so it is you can almost see that this was used for imitation and variation. Yeah? And the approach here in teaching is the elementary approach. So you start with small building blocks like cadences, scales, and then sequences. Now, this is not the same approach as what you see in the easiest pieces of the school of Leo, which was the opposite, or the rivaling school in Naples. So this was the trajectory towards opera, where you had to become flexible as an accompanist, and where you had to make modulations and so on. So you had to be a good accompanist for the opera. In the case of the Leo school, it was more directed towards church music. So what you see in the Leo school is more that you find easy partimenti that are built on themes. So if we look at the next slide, you see the school of Leo. If you see how this starts, this is really a theme. Up, tom, bom, as I see. Tom, bom, bom, bim, bom. Ba-di-da-dum, ba-da-dim, bom. So there's a theme and a counter subject, and you have to memorize the theme and the counter subject, and you have to understand the double counterpoint of it, and to when there's the counter subject is coming, you have to place the theme over it, and vice versa. And so this is not built on like elements. It's not an elementary approach, but rather a thematic approach. And this you see in Sala, you see this in Caffaro, you see this in Leo's pieces, you see this in Trito's pieces. It is very clear that this is connected with the style of contrapuntal teaching, which is really built from themes. Yeah, so the connection between partimento and counterpoint is a strong one. Yeah? We could go to the next slide. We go back to the school of Durante. You see here the continuation of what we saw previously. And you see here on the top line typical sequential patterns. You see 7, 7, 7, 7. You see pom, 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 that kind of things. And on the top of this page, you can see the scales. Yeah, so all three elements you can see already in these 2 pages. So the cadences, the scales, and the sequences. Now, often this is like 50 pages of this kind of stuff. You really do this very thoroughly, and maybe they worked a year or so on all these patterns, and they varied them in all kinds of situations and in all keys until they could start to put them together. So if we take the next slide, you see the moment where you go from the elements on the top line to the first partimento, and then it says lezioni facili. So the simplest lessons to start to play. I can't read it; it's very small. Small here. But you actually the element in the top line is actually repeated in the second line. You see that 2-4, and that 2-4 is used at the start of the. So it's really connected. So the elements you train them first one by one, and then you put them together. These elements are combined, and they make small pieces out of it. You see this in Durante, you see this in Fenaroli, you see this in Paisiello. All these Durantist masters have this same elementary approach. Okay, so this is interesting to see the difference in the pedagogy in these materials.
And this is the easy stuff, right? This is the 50 pages. Are these the 50 lessons?
No. This is just an example from I don't know the author here, but I think it is maybe from the 1740s or so, maybe a decade or two before Cotumacci.
Okay.
So we could go to the next slide. I just made a little list of the elements that you can expect in this Durantist approach. Often they start with the preparation of the fourth. So they make small cadences where you prepare the fourth in a cadence, and then you do the same thing, the ways to prepare the seventh, and then the ninth, and then you do the cadenza doppia. Okay, so all these it is almost like a curriculum to learn the entire set of figures. And so the figured base, you do it systematically with small units that are learned by ear.
I have a question, Professor Ventura. So it really has to do with progression. if you go to partimenti.org, it's you have the Joseph Dole Partimenti regulae, you have a regulae of Paisiello, a Fenroli, of course. Is it important? Is this Durante element? So basically, if you're teaching Partimento, do you follow that cadences first, rule of the octave, and then preparing dissonances, and then moti del basso? Is it typically that's how they always taught? At least for the Durante sort of way.
Yes. So sometimes there is a so some maestri can do the cadenza doppia before the 4 and the 7 and the 9. So there are differences in the order, but more or less it's more or less the same in the school of Durante. Yes.
Okay.